If you're trying to eat for diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol at the same time, it can feel like you're being pulled in three different directions. One person tells you to cut carbs. Another tells you to cut salt. Another tells you to cut fat. And after a while, eating starts to feel confusing, restrictive, and exhausting. But here's the good news. These three conditions are not asking for three completely different diets. In most cases, they are asking for one smart eating pattern that does three jobs at once. Steady your blood sugar, lower the strain on your blood vessels, and improve the quality of fat in your bloodstream. That means meal planning can get simpler, not harder. You do not need a refrigerator full of special foods. You do not need to swing from one extreme diet to another. And you definitely do not need to live on plain chicken and lettuce. What usually works best is a pattern that feels like Dash meets Mediterranean eating. In plain English, that means more vegetables, beans, lentils, intact grains, fish, nuts, seeds, fruit in sensible portions, low-fat or unsweetened dairy if it works for you, and healthy fats like olive oil. At the same time, it means pulling back on sodium, refined carbs, saturated fat, and ultra-processed convenience foods. So let's make this practical. The easiest place to start is your plate. Picture a standard 9-inch dinner plate. Half of that plate is non-starchy vegetables. Think broccoli, spinach, green beans, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, zucchini, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, salad greens, mushrooms. These foods give you volume, fiber, minerals, and satisfaction without driving up blood sugar or piling on sodium and saturated fat. 1/4 of the plate is protein, not a giant steak, not a pile of processed deli meat, just a sensible portion of something steady and satisfying. Fish, skinless chicken, turkey, plain Greek yogurt, tofu, tempeh, beans, lentils, or eggs in a reasonable amount can all fit here. The last quarter is your carbohydrate section. This is where many people get into trouble. Not because carbs are automatically bad, but because the type and amount matter. This is where you want quality carbs, not fast carbs. Oats, barley, quinoa, brown rice, wild rice, beans, lentils, sweet potato, or fruit on the side. Foods that come with fiber. Foods that digest more slowly. Foods that don't hit your bloodstream like a sugar rush. That one-plate structure does a lot of heavy lifting. It helps prevent giant glucose spikes after meals. It helps control portions without obsessive counting. And it naturally lowers the odds that your meal turns into a high-salt, high-saturated fat event. Now let's talk about one of the biggest hidden advantages in this whole approach. Fiber. When people hear fiber, they often think digestion. But for someone managing blood sugar and cholesterol, fiber is doing much more than that. Soluble fiber is especially helpful. It forms a kind of gel in the digestive tract that slows down how quickly carbohydrates are absorbed. That means a steadier rise in blood sugar instead of a sharp spike. It also helps pull cholesterol out of the body by binding with bile acids, which supports lower LDL over time. That's why foods like oats, barley, beans, lentils, chia seeds, berries, and apples can be so useful. They are not magic foods. They are simply high-value foods. They make your meal work harder for you. So instead of asking, how do I remove all carbs? A better question is, how do I upgrade my carbs? Swap white rice for brown rice, quinoa, or barley. Swap sugary cereal for oats with berries and chia. Swap crackers for a small apple with peanut butter. Swap refined pasta portions for lentil pasta, beans, or a smaller serving of pasta alongside vegetables and lean protein. That shift alone can change how you feel after eating. Now, let's move to fat, because this is where a lot of well-meaning people accidentally make things worse. If you have diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, the goal is not to fear all fat. The goal is to improve fat quality. In other words, change the source. Butter, heavy cream, fatty cuts of red meat, processed sausage, full-fat cheese in large amounts, and fried fast food tend to push saturated fat too high. That is not helpful when LDL is already a problem. Better choices are extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds, salmon, sardines, trout, and other foods rich in unsaturated fats. These choices are more supportive of heart health and usually fit better into a meal plan that also respects blood sugar. So if you want one simple sentence to remember, it's this: replace saturated fat with unsaturated fat whenever you can. Use olive oil instead of butter. Use salmon instead of fatty processed meat. Use walnuts or almonds instead of chips. Use plain Greek yogurt or hummus instead of creamy, salty dips. And while we're on the subject of salt, let's talk about the problem many people miss. For most people with high blood pressure, the salt shaker is not the main issue. The real problem is sodium hiding in everyday foods that don't even taste especially salty. Bread, canned soup, deli meat, frozen meals, salad dressing, bottled sauces, restaurant bowls, crackers, cheese, pickles, condiments, rotisserie chicken, healthy wraps. Even breakfast items can quietly bring in a huge sodium load before the day is half over. That's why somebody can say, "I barely use salt," and still eat way too much sodium. A smart meal plan keeps those silent sodium sources visible. You don't need perfection. You just need awareness. Choose no salt-added beans when you can. Rinse canned beans. Compare labels on broth, soup, bread, and sauces. Use lemon, vinegar, garlic, herbs, cumin, oregano, paprika, black pepper, ginger, cilantro, and chili to build flavor without depending on sodium. A plate can look heart-healthy and still be sodium-heavy if the sauce, bread, soup, and packaged snacks are doing the damage. Now, let's talk about meal timing, because this matters more than many people realize. If you take insulin or certain diabetes medications that can cause low blood sugar, wildly inconsistent eating patterns can make your day harder. Skipping breakfast, grazing on refined snacks, then eating a heavy carb-loaded dinner is a common setup for unstable numbers and low energy. A steadier rhythm usually works better. Try to build meals that look somewhat similar in size from day to day. Try not to let one meal be almost carb-free and the next one be a mountain of starch. And if you're learning how certain meals affect you, checking your glucose before a meal and again about 1 to 2 hours later can teach you a lot. Many people discover that it's not only what they eat. It's what they eat, how much, and what they combine it with. For example, a bowl of plain white rice by itself may hit very differently than a smaller serving of brown rice with salmon, broccoli, and olive oil. Fruit by itself may raise sugar more quickly than fruit paired with yogurt or nuts. A potato may be easier on your numbers when it comes with protein, vegetables, and a reasonable portion instead of arriving as a giant side covered in butter and salt. So let me show you what a very workable day can look like. Breakfast could be berry chia oats with plain Greek yogurt. That gives you fiber, protein, and a slower glucose rise than a pastry or sweet cereal. Lunch could be a chicken quinoa salad with lots of vegetables, olive oil, lemon, and herbs. A snack could be an apple with a spoonful of peanut butter, or plain yogurt with berries and a few walnuts, or hummus with cut vegetables. Dinner could be a salmon bowl with brown rice and roasted vegetables, or turkey and bean chili, or a lentil soup with a side salad and a small portion of intact grain, or tofu with stir-fried vegetables and a measured portion of rice. Notice the pattern. This is not about one perfect menu. It's about repetition of a few smart structures. Half vegetables, a sensible protein, a measured, high-quality carbohydrate, healthy fat in the background, sodium kept under control. That is meal planning that actually survives real life. And here's something else that matters. The best plan is usually modular. Instead of inventing a brand new breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, pick a small set of repeatable meals. Maybe 2 breakfasts, 3 lunches, 3 dinners, 2 snacks. That's enough variety to keep things from feeling boring, but not so much that planning turns into a second job. For example, you might rotate between oats and a smoothie for breakfast, then switch between a grain and protein salad, soup with beans, and leftovers for lunch. Then use salmon bowls, turkey chili, sheet pan chicken with vegetables, or lentil curry for dinner. Once you do that, grocery shopping gets easier too. Buy 1 or 2 grains in bulk. Roast a couple trays of vegetables. Cook a pot of lentils or beans. Prepare a lean protein. Portion nuts instead of eating them straight from the container. Keep frozen vegetables and frozen berries on hand. Use simple seasoning styles so the same base ingredients can feel different. One night the flavor can be Mediterranean with lemon, garlic, olive oil, and oregano. Another night, It can lean Latin with cumin, lime, cilantro, and beans. Another night, it can lean East Asian with ginger, garlic, rice vinegar, and a measured amount of low-sodium soy sauce. Same structure, different mood. That is how healthy eating becomes sustainable. Now I also want to say something important about common mistakes. One mistake is going too low-carb too fast, especially by replacing carbs with lots of saturated fat. That may look helpful at first, but it can backfire when cholesterol is part of the problem. Another mistake is overdoing healthy foods that are still calorie-dense. Nuts, olive oil, nut butters, avocado, and whole grains can all fit beautifully into this pattern, but portions still matter. And another mistake is treating fruit juice, smoothies, granola bars, flavored yogurt, or store-bought health foods like they're automatically safe. Some are basically dessert in disguise. Others are sodium-heavy convenience foods wearing a wellness label. Whole food usually beats processed, healthy food. Before we finish, I want to touch on a few safety points, because meal planning and medication can overlap in important ways. If you take a statin, grapefruit may interact with some of those medications. If you take warfarin, the answer is not to avoid green vegetables completely. The key is keeping vitamin K intake consistent from day to day. If you have kidney disease, heart failure, or you take medications like ACE inhibitors or ARBs, suddenly loading up on potassium or using potassium-based salt substitutes may not be safe without medical guidance. And if you take an SGLT2 inhibitor, very low-carb or ketogenic diets, and long fasting windows deserve extra caution and should be planned with your clinician. So yes, food matters deeply. But food still has to fit your medication plan, your kidney function, and your real health picture. And that brings us to the part I really want you to remember. Meal planning for diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol is not about punishment. It is about reducing friction in your body. You want meals that ask less of your pancreas, less of your arteries, less of your heart, less of your blood vessels. Meals that help your numbers without making your life miserable. So the next time you look at your plate, don't think in terms of fear. Think in terms of function. Where is the fiber? Where is the protein? Where is the quality carb? Where is the healthy fat? And where is the hidden sodium? If you can answer those 5 questions most of the time, you are probably moving in the right direction. You do not need to get every meal perfect. You need a pattern that is steady enough to repeat. A plate you can build on a busy Tuesday. A grocery list you can actually follow. A breakfast you don't have to rethink every morning. A dinner that supports your blood sugar, your blood pressure, and your cholesterol all at once. That is the real goal. Not a miracle diet, not a crash plan, not a week of being good. A calm, repeatable way of eating that helps you feel more stable, more energized, and more in control over time. And for many people, that starts with one very simple decision. Build the next meal around vegetables, protein, quality carbs, and smarter fats. Then keep doing that often enough that your body can finally stop fighting every plate you eat.